And hello, how are you? I'm fixing my hair real quick. How are you? Happy Friday. We are back. Definitely comment and share the video out. We are back to 30 Women, 30 Stories. Again, definitely drop by and say hello. How are you? Where are you tuning in from? Today is day 20. If you have not yet, definitely subscribe. Give it back to her right now. Okay, hurry up. Definitely subscribe to A Note for God in YouTube. Definitely do that. Of course. The minute you hit play. Okay, you can get it later. Let's go. Thank you. Later.
I don't want to keep it.
Okay, you were using his. Oh, go. Thank you.
No, I wasn't using nothing.
Kids, I tell you. Anyway, so definitely subscribe to A Note for God on YouTube. Like I've said this before, the great thing about that is that they're recorded, they're there. We're actually broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope. So if you're going for a walk, you're working out, just driving by, definitely go back and listen to the amazing testimonies that these women are sharing. I truly believe it's really a time to share our testimonies, not to stay quiet. So I'm telling you, I'm reading this book right now, the Deborah Norton, and she talks about that, how the devil strategically tries to silence women. If you don't have this book, she's not sponsored, but if you don't have this book, I really, really would suggest you getting it, because as I'm reading, like I want to highlight the whole book and I take notes. So definitely read it. Our guest is here today already. We'll get started. I'll bring her in, and I'm gonna bring her in first. How are you? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Before we get started, you see this picture? That's her. She drew that. I'm trying to make it. I'm trying to be Vanna White, but I was just not working.
No, they've seen it in all your interviews, so I'm thankful. Thank you.
Yeah. With her, she failed when she posted that. I'm like, that's mine, and I want it because, of course, I have curly hair. You can't say right now, but definitely curly, and it's been up there. So if you definitely want anything from her, definitely connect with her. I love it. I have this. I'm in my office, obviously, but I just had to say that. I'm like, this is the artist who did it.
Got to put the face to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Every time I'm like, she's going to be, I'll let her, definitely, if you want a picture, follow her. She's on Facebook, on her own website, kristennicolemann.com, Twitter. So there's no reason for not to connect with her. I'm just saying. All right. So thank you so much for coming on here. I know, because I always say, we're always so busy, work, children, everything else under the umbrella. So thank you so much for coming on here and getting ready to share your testimony.
Yay.
And just like I've seen it, we'll just get to it, because the main reason I always say that is because I have two kids, a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old.
I mean, mine was out. I was like, please sit in your room quietly, please. Because
I said that to my daughter. She was sitting there watching one of her shows.
Yeah.
And then my son grabbed her tablet, and it's like World War
III.
So that is really the reason why I said let's get to it, because these kids will be coming on here interrupting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So welcome. All right. So tell us really your background. I did not get a chance to meet you. I know you were at Millions Conference last year in DC, correct?
Correct.
I remember you were a vendor.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I remember you were a vendor. I didn't get to meet you.
Right.
You were there because somebody said your pictures were there. So we haven't met, but we've known each other online.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Through Tiffany's book club, and then KU. So here we go. So let us know. Well, I guess let's start from the background, like your background being your childhood, and then what events really led you to surrendering and just giving your life to Christ, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Kristen Nicole Mann, and I grew up in Northern Virginia, a little small place called Warrington, Virginia. And then my dad had our family relocate to upstate New York. So I lived here from the upstate New York from 2 years old to 11 years old. And then we moved back to Virginia. So I had some of my childhood in New York and then some of my childhood in Virginia. And I see I'm freezing. Is it freezing a little bit?
It was a little bit freezing, yes.
Okay. I didn't know if that was just me. But so I lived in New York and Virginia, my childhood. But we grew up in church. My family, my mom, she always was saved since I was born. And then my dad, he always was serving. So he was like an usher or just like help serving food or cleaning the church. So I actually grew up in church. But for me, as far as like coming to Christ, it wasn't until I was like 26.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
I'm just shocked. Like 26, I was say 12, 15.
No. I always was aware of who God was and how powerful he was, because we wasn't part of just like mediocre churches. Like I had seen the casting out the demons, all of that. But for me and my personal relationship with God, when I really started to talk to him, I would say 26. And the reason why is because my dad had passed away from alcoholism. And, during that whole, like my whole life, he was an alcoholic. But he was one of the ones that kind of hid. He never drank in front of us. He never was abusive. He never was any of that. But he would get off of work and he would go in his man cave and then come up a totally different person.
Wow.
So I seen that like my whole life. And it was one of those things where as a child, you think you're supposed to take on a parenting role because you're seeing your own parent hurt themselves. And so I internally would just think like, how can I not be a burden to my dad?
Oh, wow.
So my relationship with God, I recognized as I got older, that's what it was reflecting. So how can I not be a burden to God? How can I just not be like, a person that put more on him? I'll come to him, but I don't want to be like putting all my burdens on him. So I really wouldn't talk to God. And I thought I was back then, but I really wasn't like communing with him. I wasn't even asking him for nothing. And that's how I used to do my dad. I wouldn't ask him for nothing because I would see him hurting himself. So when he was sober, I would try to milk that until he, maybe transformed into this other person. And that was my whole childhood up to adulthood until he passed away. So 26, I would say, was the pivotal moment because I stepped into my artistry as like a professional. I always had art to turn to whenever I felt like, it was too much for me to handle my dad's alcoholism. And, I always had sketchbooks, crayons, colored pencils, you name it. And my mom still, till this day, has like pictures I drew of our family and stuff. Right. So I always had art as like, an outlet, but it wasn't until I had moved away from Northern Virginia to New York, and I was that particular age, 26. And I didn't recognize that I had not mourned my dad's passing. So what I would do is I would be going with my life, and then I'll be cooking or something, and then all of a sudden cry, like out of nowhere. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, and I would be extremely moody. I would be just like up and down with my emotions. And I had a child at this point, so it was weird. I was just like, what is going on? Because I
never drum. It's a kid. Yeah,
right,
yeah, I know.
Right. And my son actually came the same year my dad passed.
Oh wow.
So I didn't react to his passing because I didn't want to hurt my child. So I was like, I can't be sobbing and everything because, they say it connects to your child. And, my mom and my sister, they took it really hard. And so I kind of stepped in as this person, like, let's get the funeral done. I did my dad's obituary. I did all of it. And I even spoke at the funeral. And so I'm doing all of this, but I'm not tending to my own needs. Mm-hmm. So when I moved away out of the environment of knowing everyone, having my friends everywhere and just comfort zone, that's when God really started to deal with me in our relationship, because I had put him on the back burner. Like, I would talk to him, but I really didn't ask him for much because I was like, I don't want to be a burden.
Right. And I think most of us can relate to that. Like, just going back to the whole purpose of doing this, it's like my testimony is not so big, or my, like you were saying, my request from you, God, in retrospect, they're really probably insignificant because these other people are going through like these dramatic things, and we really need to get out of that mentality, right? Because it might be big, it might be small on your part, but that small little thing, as we see, can later really impact you.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it right. So I had not mourned. I had not done nothing. I was just, all of a sudden, I had these emotional spurts. And then finally, God was like dealing with those deep, deep, deep crevices in my heart. And he finally revealed to me throughout a period of time, like, hey, you haven't dealt with how your father affected your life. And I was like, what? And it just started unraveling from there. Like, guys I would want to date, or I was drawn to, or I was trying to get attention out of. I was thinking that was normal. Like, oh, they can give a little bit of attention and then I can go on about my way. But he would just reveal that. He revealed how I viewed men in general, how I viewed him, and, being a him. And I'm like, it was all unraveling. And I was like, whoa. And some stuff still unravels, it's like it's a process. So I still, will hear something in a soft voice like, hey, you need to check this part of your heart. And I love it now. I embrace it now because I'm like, okay, this is a correction that is going to level me up in a certain way. So that started to happen at 26 when I stepped into artistry, which is weird because I was like, I'm really going to take artistry seriously. I don't know what this is going to bring. But he was saying to me, like, I had to deal with this first.
Yeah.
Before I could really connect my heart to the work, because artistry, you have to really have a heart and passion for it. So
you do, because I don't.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Like, I get lost in it. So that's really like, my evolving of my relationship with God. I learned how to make it our own and not based off of my mom's relationship or my sister's relationship. Because like I said, we were all in church, but I would be the type that people would overlook because I just wasn't verbal a lot. I would like to observe. And that's the same thing my dad used to do, is observe people. He always used to tell me, like, pay attention to their mannerisms, how they do. And that's how I was. And I don't know if that came off as like me having an attitude or whatever the case may be. But I just didn't have a lot of mentors, that people that took me under their wing and was like, hey, this is how you have a relationship with God. It was more so like, hey, how you doing? And then somebody else in my family they'll connect to. So it was, when I moved to New York, it was just like an isolation that I needed, because I would just go. There's nothing in upstate New York. and there's no access to there's no access. I used to have access to Washington, D.C., all these places.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, he was like, bloop, you're going to sit here. And I was like fighting it. My son's dad is from here, but he was like, it's really expensive to raise our son out here in Virginia. So let's, try to co-parent out in New York. And I was like, are you crazy?
No.
No, you come out here, you try. And God was like, no, you need a different scenery. So that's when it just all hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my gosh. So.
Oh my gosh. What I like your I want to just emphasize, in the beginning of your story, you were saying, I was raised in the church, my mom, my dad, believers. And I kind of want to emphasize to other people as well. And then you mentioned that your dad was an alcoholic. A lot of people assume, because we've all been there, like, oh, they're a perfect Christian family, like they have no issues. And I really would like for us to kind of take back and stop assuming things, because we all go through things, right?
Yeah.
Christian or not Christian or whatever you want to say, like you're always going to be going through things, especially in this life. And like you were saying, he was an alcoholic. And the word functional, like alcoholic or functional drug addict, like they still go to work, they still do their responsibilities. Yeah. And then, like you were saying, like I didn't really know, but then eventually, it was out, when he would go in his room. So people go through things, right? So just because they're taking care of their responsibilities, because he went to work, it's still a problem, right? It's still a problem. And now I think now that we're a little bit more into the walk, we understand where things could have come up with. Let's just do it, because we don't know what happened, but you're able to understand. And then you were saying, like, your dad, I'm assuming out of love, would say, kind of observe, observe. And then, because I'm the same way, I don't know, might be a little bit like you, where if I met you, and we were talking about this in my cousin, if I meet you like the first time, you're not getting a hug from me. Don't come near me. Like,
that's how I used to be.
I'm still this way. Maybe God will change me, but as of right now, He has not.
Right.
And I'm like, you're too close. Let's talk about your life. Let's not, because I don't know you.
Right.
Hi, and then I walk away, because that's just,
Yeah.
Now you have other people who go and hug and kiss, and I'm like, you don't even know them. Like, why are we having? Like, maybe on the second, third, or 10th visit, then you might get a hug or a handshake. But that's, but that's just how we are. But I want to say that when you see people like that, it doesn't mean like they have an attitude. It doesn't mean like they're too good. It just means that's how they are.
Yeah.
And we need to accept people how they are,
Right. And it's never too late for a transformation, because I remember people used to ask me in church, like, how am I doing? And I wanted to cry on the drop of the dime. But I didn't know why I wanted to cry. It's because I had all these emotions and I didn't know how to articulate it. So I was sitting here with a father that had an alcohol addiction. I didn't see anybody else actually telling the truth. So I'm thinking my whole situation is totally different. Yeah. We're like the worst family ever, but we were actually trailblazers in a sense, because we didn't hide that. We were very transparent, and we were a real family. So we talked about issues at the table. We talked about these things, but outside in those worlds of the churches and, any other space, we didn't feel like we were going to be relatable. So I took that internally in, and I was like, I don't want to share that my dad's alcoholic, because nobody knows what I'm talking about. And it's hurtful, but I can't share this. So at church, I would be like, So then worship, guess what? I'm not opening up. Praying, I'm not opening up. I'm not doing nothing but watching other people and feeling like they advanced more than me within their families or relationship with God or anything. So I'm thinking all these people are better than me versus God really, accepting God's love.
Yeah.
For me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it was a very confusing time for me when I was in church up until that age. And then I moved away and I started getting to a church out here by myself without influences. Yeah. So I was able to sit there and listen and kind of like dissect like what's for me, what's not for me. And I ended up blossoming, into the person I kind of sort of am now. And I'm still blossoming, but I'll give you a hug now. I'll talk to you. I'll be way more transparent when the time is needed, not bleeding on you. Right. If you ask for it, I'm not afraid, like when we're getting on live, I'm not afraid no more. Right. There's still some things I'm like, okay, working through, but I'm way more transparent, and it's helped me with my communication with my son's dad, because I used to hate him. Like, I used to be like, it's about me. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. You're not this. You're not. And then God was like, he's not your father.
Exactly. Right.
He's not your dad. These are things you wanted to tell your dad when he was alive, but now you're putting it on someone else when all you need to do is come to me.
Right.
And get that healing so that you can be able to communicate with more than just women. You can communicate because you now have a son.
Yeah.
You have to know how to talk to him. And I'm like, woo!
That's a lot right there. We need to pause for there because you make sense. Because I'm assuming you were putting those expectations on his father, on your son's father.
Yeah, in a relationship with him. I was expecting on him.
Based on your father's expectations, right?
Yes.
But right.
A whole different person.
Yeah.
So God had to reveal that, and I this is not that long ago. So I'm just telling you, that's why it's still stuff it's a process.
It is a process.
You might get smacked in the face with something that you thought you dealt with. And when he revealed that, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? Mm-hmm. I have to repent.
Yes.
Because I've been thinking it's about me and I'm perfect. And I'm like, and it's not to say that nobody else does anything to you, but I recognize in a lot of my relationships, even with just family and just friends, I wasn't doing my due diligence of like living in that healing. It was still things like, kind of jaded and still some trust factors and I'm putting all that on them for a person that's no longer here.
Right. I hope we're getting that. I really hope we're getting that. Like these expectations on a person, your father, now he passed away, and now you're trying to put that on everybody else, and God is saying, well, you haven't really healed that, and most importantly, was for him, not for these other people.
Right. So I have to talk to him about and lay that at the altar about how these emotions I had towards my father and daughter relationship.
Yeah.
So it's two different things.
Right.
And so that was a major chunk of my life, because addiction, if anybody has anybody that they know with addiction, it's rough. Yeah. It's like, I mean, my dad almost died twice when I was young. Like jaws of life had to get him out of the car. All these things. I watched my mom just like stay strong through it. But I also watched our family still somewhat resent him because it was taken away. Mm-hmm. Like, why can't you just be normal?
Right.
And then after he passed, it's just like God revealed so much to us as a whole of like how we were internally like dealing with it, how we were trying to move on with life, just several things. And we now understand that his addiction wasn't to hurt us.
Right.
It was because he wasn't bringing what he needed to God, because he also felt that way. He also felt he wasn't worthy. He also felt this and that. So it's like you feeling like that in church, he also felt like that.
Right.
Because people overlooked him. People, didn't think he was like, worthy of getting a role or position, or so it was eye-opening. It was eye-opening. And like I said, I'm still dealing with some things, but I've made way more progress.
Right. I'm way better now.
Yeah, and that was 2014 when he died. And today is his birthday.
Oh, well, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, heavenly birthday. And so now I can rejoice because I know he made it to heaven. He made it to heaven. We made sure of that as a family. And, I don't cry no more because I'm like, he's at the seated at the throne. Right. Why would you want to be down here? You don't want to be down here.
Too much craziness going on.
Right.
And I like what you said. One thing with your mom and your sister, they had their own relationship with God, and you had to figure that. I like that you said that because everybody's relationship with God looks a little different, right? Especially on the stages that we're at, and how we really talk to Him. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean like the verbiage. I've always said especially within the last 2 years, because the way I was raised, because the way my character, I guess you can say, is you really cannot hurt me at a level, let's say 1 through 10, right? You can't really hurt me at a level 1, a level 2, because I overcome, I get over it, and then we move on. So I always felt during my transition of really coming to God, it was like, He already knew, like, I can't hurt her at a 1, at a 2, at a 3, or 4, or 5, because she's wrong, she gets over it. And by over it is you find the solutions and you move on because you have kids and you have a job and you have a career. So I always felt like it had to be a level 10 for me to get my attention. It's like, well, hold up. Right. So at that point, it's like, you got my attention at that level. And then the way I communicate, I go back to the communication, might be a little bit different than how he speaks to you or her. To me, it really has to be like a harsh, like, come on, like, just the way people, he speaks to me, because that's why I was like, wait.
No, he speaks to me like that too. Like, I have journals upon journals, and he has to be straightforward with me because I love people. I'm so people sensitive that people will get in the way of our relationship, and he'll be like, he'll cut right through that and be like, hold up, separate how you're looking at this, who's talking to you a certain way, what they said on Facebook or social media, like, cut it out. This is what I'm saying. So it's like, okay, guys.
I remember once, because I was going through my stuff in 2018. And, I was emotional and crying. I'm not a crier, but that is just called for, I put it out there. Not that I care, but I remember driving and talking to God in this conversation and saying, boo-hoo-hoo, crying, like, I hear you, God. I hear that you're talking to me, but I don't think, me and my judgment, I don't really think you're talking to that person. And it's like, who are you to tell? What makes you think I'm not talking to that person? And I was like, I don't.
Right. Because we could get self-centered and we could think like he won't handle, them. But that's just not our job. We're not God. So I've learned to step back and allow God to be my God. Like, and that was so hard because, like I told you in the beginning, I would try to not be a burden to my dad. So that's like pride. Like that's like, oh, don't worry about me. I got it. And then you're like crumbling, like, and you're just bursting out. Once it gets piled up, you burst out. You're like, ah, and everybody's like, what's wrong?
You're crazy.
I don't know. And you piled all this stuff on top of you when you really don't got it. You really don't got it.
And you're never going to, because I remember here in my office, it's typically where I spend a lot of my time in 2018 after picking up my kids from daycare. I would come and do journaling. And it's like, he said to me, you've tried to do it on your own, but we see that has not worked.
Said the same thing. Yeah.
Let's try to do it with me. And I was like, well, you do have a point there.
Well, like, I think you're right, you know.
You're right.
Oh God, you know.
I can't quote the Bible scripture, but I know in the Bible it says to ask him, and ask him for anything, petition, lean on me, don't lean on your own understanding, right?
Yeah.
So it says in the Bible over here. I'm gonna look it up now because I know.
Right. I'm like, where's my Bible at?
Yeah, there's scripture that states you need to keep on asking him, petition and
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
that's the key point you made, because remember, like, they tell us to tug on God like a child, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I wouldn't do that because I was this child lacking father attention. And I'm like thinking the dysfunction is normal. And I'm just like, that's how I did my whole relationship with God, dysfunctionally. So whenever I needed something, I was like, I'll say it once, or I wouldn't even say it. I might murmur it. Right. But I'm like, I don't want to, I got to figure this out by myself. I got to figure it. And I'm worrying myself. Yeah. And then I'm stressing myself. And then it's like, it's not until he like stopped and shook me basically and was like, hey, you're not God. I'm God. Right. I'm your father. This is why I'm here. You don't have to worry about this all by yourself. You can reach out to me all times of the day, all times of the night. I'm looking. I'm sovereign. I'm everywhere. Right. So it was really hard for me to transition into leaning on him and really like trusting him and really like being involved in the relationship, because I just was not, I didn't trust no one. The dudes that I tried to date, didn't trust them, but hey, we're just gonna date anyway. It's trash. It's a trash way of mentality to think, but that's truly what he showed me. Like,
but yeah, at least you were being honest. Like, I don't really trust you, but I guess this is what we kind of have to do dating. Yeah. Whatever. Whatever.
Going on like with no purpose, just like, hey, whatever. We connect on one thing. That's okay. So it was just me taken away from myself, because that's how I viewed myself. I didn't have, I was very pretty, but I didn't see it. I was like seeing the total opposite in the mirror, because of how people were treating me. They were treating me like I was nothing. So I was like, this is what I'm gonna live in. I'm not, smart. I'm not attractive. Everybody always wants somebody else. Like, I'm just gonna stay in this little safe space and just try to be me the best way I know how, and that's it. And just talk to God every now and then.
I'll talk to you
like that. Nobody wants a life like that. Like,
and then I just want to emphasize this too. Yes, he says ask. But one of the things I had to learn is some things are not going to be answered right away. Yeah. So you really have to trust in God's timing. Yes, would I like X, Y, and Z to be solved today? I mean, if you could do it right now, I'll be more happier. But you have to have faith that it's going to get answered. But you also have to have patience, because sometimes you have to grow in whatever you're going through. Yeah. You, not the person,
right?
Not the neighbor, not
everyone else.
Not anybody. You have to grow and really kind of show God, like, okay, I get it. I get what I was doing wrong. I have now evolved, and then we're able to move on to get your solutions. That's for me. That's really crucial to understand. I'm like, ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm perfect.
Right. And even with having a child, like, I had to evolve, like you said. I had to be patient. I had to slow down and be like, God gave me this as a gift, whether I was married or not. So I need to figure this thing out with God, not on my own. And I was just like, praying. I was like, God, allow me to parent, better. Allow me to communicate the needs of the child to the other parent. Allow me, like, all these things, because we will get in that prideful state and say, I'm not doing it. I'm not the one making this hard. I'm not the one making this difficult. I communicate. I do. Soon as you say that, he'll be like, humility, humbleness, all of that will be taught. Like you just
because it's the truth. Like,
yeah,
just going back to what I was saying, it's like I did nothing wrong.
right.
I am perfect. You gotta go fix them.
I'm a saint.
It's like, so of course I popped an attitude because they deserved it. So go fix it. You know,
Right.
and I'm gonna say this. I knew I had grown. I'm the kind of person that if I see like injustice, especially like at work or people, and this is the thing, most people at work do stuff wrong, and they know they do stuff wrong, but they're in a little hype of power, because they're the boss or whatever, or the secretary, and they got whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person that says, but you did wrong, and this is why. Or what you're doing is a little power play, and I don't do that. Like I see everyone the same. Like you're a boss, you're a janitor, because I have 15 years of teaching experience. So in the school district environment, right? So I see everybody the same. So I knew I grew when I went to apologize to I want to say secretary, office manager, secretary, right? Just in term. And the reason is because I was so irritated. She came to me like, not right, but I was so irritated when she came at me because I'm like, this is the evidence that says that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're wrong, and then you want to try to make me seem like I'm dumb. So anyway, so that night, God was like, you just need to go back and apologize to her. And I'm like,
oh,
but she was wrong,
Yeah. He will show you.
I knew I had grown when he said, you better go do that thing first thing in the morning when you get to work. Don't you wait 3, 4, 5 hours. So I went to her and I said, whatever. I said, look, I just want to come and apologize. And she was, let me preface by saying this. She was very surprised because of me.
Yeah.
She did not expect it. I just went and I said, look, I'm sorry. I gave you a little attitude yesterday. I shouldn't have. But this is the reason, because. So you have a good day. And you should have seen her face.
And what? It probably helped her because that's what God will do. He will like put us in order, even if we're right or wrong. And we got to come back and apologize, or we have to communicate. And we don't know how that's going to affect the people down the line, because that might be the bridge to get them to know who God is, because they're like, oh, this person like is really transforming right before my eyes.
Or she would never have expected an apology. But I knew I had to listen. And once you start really walking in this journey, you have to listen to when God tells you to do something.
Yeah.
I knew, did I really want to? Like, but I knew I had to go apologize because that is what God said to do, whether I felt like it or not.
Yeah.
Because I knew then if I did it, I was going to be corrected one way or another way.
Absolutely.
So it's
right in the car
during my lunch. Oh, you
like you didn't.
You're gonna take lunch. Oh no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Right. Absolutely. I completely understand what you're saying. So it's hard sometimes, but yeah, he'll give you that whooping.
And and we're not saying that it's easy.
No, we're not.
But it becomes right, exactly. And I want to preface that, and continue to say that because I feel like people, it's like, oh, I listen right away.
Right.
To me, it becomes easier, maybe
as time goes on.
As time goes on, right? It's easier for me now to do what he tells me to do than it was back in 2018.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we talk about it? Can we negotiate, God?
Right. Yeah, that's the thing I used to do a lot too, like negotiating and like, all right, I'll do it tomorrow or I'll wait. And then it's like the time that you don't do it, all hell breaks loose. Literally.
Yeah, exactly. How about you go back and you come back and tell me, or
yeah.
God will not change his mind. He tells you to do it, just do it. And then we learn our lesson. Because I always feel, I'm sure you do too, it's like, if he tells me to do something, it's like, and I like to ask 1,001 question. It's like, how long we can sit here, Grace? We can sit here in my throne because I have nothing else to do. And
I know.
and I am gonna wait for you to do what I asked you to do. And then once you get done, then we'll move on. But it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and I didn't really get comfortable with that until like he made me quit my job, because I was, you know, I was working since I was 15 for an actual job on paper.
Wow.
So that stemmed from, I didn't want my dad or parents to worry about me. So I stepped up and started working at 15 at a consignment shop that was right across the street from my high school. So I would leave school and go to work and then get off and come home. So I was like doing that 15. I wouldn't suggest, you know, people to do that now, but it was a nice job. It was nice. But I always had worked. And so it wasn't until 2019, I think it's been a little over a year that I've been like not with a job. And, you know, this was a job that anyone in the church would dream about, because it was like a secretary job. And like, you're thinking psychologically, church has taught us if you're in a role or a title or position in the church, you're very important.
Oh, wow.
That's what at least my environment taught me. So it was like, forget everybody else. In some churches, forget everybody else. Throw the petals, rose petals, look up to me, call me, you know, mother, father. That's it. Everybody else, you're just coming, you're doing your tithing, and you go home.
You leave.
You leave. So I'm coming in with this mentality like, okay, God's really going to use me. And he was like, you need to quit. And I was like, at first I was like, okay, I'm going to get up and go to work tomorrow. And time went on. I started getting like this nausea feeling, like it just, I mean, I couldn't focus. It was to the point where I had to bring my journal one day to work, because I was like, I need to know if this is God or not. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting the same feeling. It's like getting intense. And I'm like, what is going on? Because I'm not an anxiety. Like, I don't really deal with anxiety in that way. I know I get stressed out, but I don't identify as being like a person with anxiety. So I knew something was off. So I took my lunch, a little break, I remember, and I was like, I just wrote on the paper, and I still have the notebook, like, God, is this you? Mm-hmm. He said, yes, this is me. And if you do not do what I told you to do, there will be consequences. So you need to say you're putting in your 2 weeks today.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. I was like, well, how do you, in my head, I'm like, how do you do this? Because I'm working for a whole church. Like, how do you do this? Yeah. I thought this was it. Like, I'm doing what you want me to do. He's like, that's not what I wanted you to do for the rest of your life. And I'm like, gosh, I have a child. I have this, I have that. So the emotions and everything just started getting worse. And I ended up having to say what he told me to say. And I said I was called outside of the building. Didn't know what I was saying. Didn't have a plan. I was just like, I knew what the Holy Spirit was telling me. And the way that my art and everything was transitioning, it was just, I was in these unusual spaces. Like, I'm speaking to young adults that are trying to get their life together. Then I would go to summer programs and speak to middle schoolers. It was all over the place. And I was like, what is this? Like, I've never seen anyone amplify their art like this. Yeah. And so I'm not looking at a blueprint. I'm just walking at this point. But then I still have a job. Yeah. So this side of me walking was starting to take up space in my actual job. Mm-hmm. And I had to make a decision. That's basically what God said. Like, and you're going to have to make my decision. And I'm like, but I always had a boss. Like I'm good. And I just started like not paying attention to the point where I would miss things. Like I'm working for a church, so I'm like missing grammar things. I'm missing, like, I'm not really in tune.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that, like, staring out the window, and it just wasn't clicking. And it started just to get worse and worse. And when I finally said that, it was like I could breathe.
Wow.
But I was still scared because I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. And I have like a roof in the car and all this stuff.
And child.
I'm like, child, myself, what is going on? So yeah, he told me. I quit in August of last year. And then all of a sudden I was in silence at home. And I just have books upon books of journals where I wrote what was happening now, like the pandemic. And, you know, he's like, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. And I still back then was like, what is this? And, you know, as time went on, still January 2020, I did the Daniel's fast. I'm still like, what's going on? And he's still telling me, but I'm still confused about it. And so it wasn't until like COVID hit, I was like, so you're telling the truth. It's not that I didn't trust your word, but I'm like, this came a little bit sooner than I thought. So that happened, but he's kept me through the whole time. And then boom, George Floyd dies. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I saw the clip. It's almost like I saw the clip before everybody else because it wasn't being shared. It wasn't like, and I was like, what is this person? Like, this person is literally getting murdered on the screen.
Yeah.
So I shared it. And it wasn't until like a whole week later, everyone started recognizing. And it made me sick to my stomach. But I didn't know, like, I was like, what can I do? Because I'm like, I can't stand injustice. So I'm like, I'm an artist though. What do I like? Where do I stand in all of this? Because I can paint a picture. I can be like anybody else and paint him in honor of him, George Floyd, but I didn't want to do that. So take a sabbatical trip to Virginia to visit my sister.
I did see that part, yeah.
Yeah. She lives near Washington, D.C., so she gets their news. Okay. So we go to bed. We literally get up and the whole mural, Black Lives Matter mural, is done. And the whole street name is changed.
Yeah.
Everyone out there is like, what is going on? Because it was like an overnight thing.
Yeah, it was.
And then to see all the people painting, I was like, me as an artist, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How do I bring this in an all-white neighborhood, upstate New York? So I sat on it. Then people started tagging me in the actual article from where I live. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this has got some type of buzz.
Yeah.
And people are thinking like, they're like, I can see you doing this. And I'm just like, yeah, but I don't really know how to do it by myself. So it's just weird. And then I ended up coming back home and this urge, like it almost was like, until I do it, I won't get no sleep.
Yeah.
And somebody just threw out a random idea, like, you should start a petition. This is what I did, Grace. They literally said it. And then I went on my laptop and I was like, how do you start a petition? Change.org came up. I didn't think about what I was writing. It was just like the Holy Spirit. Like, I literally wrote a whole 3-4 paragraphs of why this is important, blah, blah, blah. And I just put it up.
Wow.
2 hours later, it's like 1,000. Then it gets to like 3,000. This is the same day.
Wow.
Then I'm sitting here at my laptop. I get a call from the mayor. Still don't know how he got my number.
Right.
I still don't know how he got my number till this day. But I see my phone ringing. I don't have the number saved. And I'm like, who is this? Pick up the phone. They're like, oh, this is the mayor's office. Is this Kristen Mann? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, no.
Like, yeah. How did you get my number?
Right.
And then like, if you have a few minutes, can you talk to the mayor? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. But on the other end, I'm like, Holy Spirit, please, 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 please. And so he gets on the phone. He's like, I saw your petition. I don't want you to think I don't want this type of project in this, city. And what can we do? How can we help? Very good phone call. Let's meet tomorrow. So I'm like excited. He's like, yeah, we would even fund it. All of that was said on the phone call.
Wow.
So I get off the phone call and I get on live and I'm like, he approved it. Gets like 4,000, 5,000 views. I go meet with him. It started going down. It was like, okay, we have to do this, but our attorney said this, so we might have to just think about what we're doing. Like they started backpedaling. So I already knew. I was like, okay. I'm just sitting there like I'm dumb. And they're like, this has never been done. You know that, right? And I'm like, yeah. And so he starts bringing up other organizations, other this, other. I was like, I came here as an artist. Right. I just done.
Right. Like
I don't want to talk about nobody else.
Right.
I by myself. I want it done. So he's like, oh, okay, because I thought you were with. I was like, no, I'm with Kristen. Yeah, that's who I'm with. But I was like, I just want this done on June 19th. So this is the beginning of June. They dragged it all the way until the end of July to get it approved.
Wow.
Multiple phone calls, multiple this, multiple that. How they even like made up paperwork that didn't exist before because I wanted to paint Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't the end. The church world came after me too because they were like, have you looked up the organization? I was getting phone calls, texts, all this. Like, have you looked this up? Have you looked that up? And I'm like, I had to like stop answering my phone because it was really discouraging me. But I know God told me to do this. And I'm like, God told me to do this. Y'all don't understand. But he was like, don't explain yourself to nobody. Just cut the access.
Yeah.
So I literally had to not like talk to too many people about it because it was just that intense. Mm-hmm. And I had what I thought was supposed to be supportive wasn't supportive at all. People were Bible thumping me. They're still doing that. But I just don't share it because I'm not going to give no energy to that.
Right.
But yeah, it was all of that also I was dealing with, along with me being the local government's public enemy number one. And I'm just an artist. Right. How can an art project for the community start so much drama? I'm like, I just want to get it done. It's 3 words.
Right.
And so finally, they gave me the approval papers, and I was like, and I literally was like, it was like I was holding my breath through June 8th. I think I started the process until they approved it, which was like a week before when I really did it, which was July 26th, 27th weekend. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest project of my life so far. And it really revealed what was going on in my city. Mm-hmm. Demonically, mm-hmm. The big demons that's here, which is racism is one of them. Right. Why the city that I live in is malnourished with like just God in general, and mm-hmm. also just all the things that they have in place is to keep people down here, and the other people up top. Mm-hmm. So I like revealed all of that with an art project.
Yeah, because we're not gonna approve your project because now you're really gonna, reveal our true colors.
Right.
we kind of, I mean, let's be honest, because, I'm Mexican American. Like,
Yeah.
we already know a lot of the racist stuff that goes on. Like, we're not dumb.
We're
right?
not dumb. Yeah. Yeah.
But, and they can say all they want, like, no, we're not racist. But when you start bringing it out,
yeah,
like, I've been told, I was born and raised in Chicago. So, yeah, so I'm not like from Mexico, like most people think, right? Which I always get like, when did you arrive to this country? And I'm like,
it's so rude.
It is
so rude. Yeah.
Or I would get this. I also get this comment. You speak very well English, like really good. Like, when did you learn it? I'm like,
what did you just say? Like, and that's the question that I kept getting. Like, were you classically trained in art? Like, through that process, I was like, why does that even matter right now?
Yeah, what does that matter? Like,
what? I don't know you. I don't know you. And so, with that being said, like, I got a lot of scrutiny, but I went through the fire when I quit my job. Like, God was just downloading stuff. He was like grooming me and prepping me because he knew this was coming.
Yeah.
And so I didn't take it as personal because I had, like, he literally brought me off the job, I believe, to build my character through that, because he knows what's coming after this. Like, he's the God of the future, and that's what he had to reveal to me. Like, I'm the God of the future. I know what's gonna go on. You don't have to tell me. And I'm like, okay, yeah.
I like that you said that. Like, whenever you come, he is building you up because he knows what's coming along. And if these things, were to be thrown to you at that time that you came to him, in our transition, we would have just crumbled and be like, no, we can't. But right now that we're going through, what you went through, it didn't, I don't want to say you didn't get hurt, but it wasn't as hurtful. It didn't phase you. It was like, okay,
we moved on. Rolled. It rolled down my back. So it was definitely prepping me for the time that I did it. And I'm just so grateful that I had God, because I had so many people come against me, even my own people, Black people. They were just, I mean, everyone was like not agreeing with the street that I was having it on. So I would see like all these Facebook statuses like, oh, that street, it's hidden. Like, nobody's going to go on it. Why did you pick that street? Let's pick another street. So I had Black men coming at me because they were like, yeah, it was so weird, but I was so built for it. And I was like, thank you, God, for prepping me for this time, because I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
I probably would have hurt myself. I really would have, because it was that bad. Yeah. It was that bad.
Well, thank you that you went through that transition to be
I know
strong.
Yes.
And if for somebody to make that comment, what is hidden, it's not going to be hidden anymore.
Well, it's funny because it's actually the street that I did it by. It's the riverbank, so it's by the river. And you've seen, probably I posted about like the information I received about the street, because a lot of people jumped off that riverbank to kill themselves. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Then even taking it like way back, it was the KKK headquarters on that specific street. So to see like now a little Black girl from Virginia is now taking territory with what used to be evil and turning it for God's good. It's like now it's a spot where people go eat their lunch. They get, there's out there. It's brought a lot of attention, and it's brought a lot of attention to the homeless. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that the homeless population was that, grand in this area. So it's done a lot of things that God didn't necessarily was like, this is XYZ, but it was this urge, like, you need to get this done. And it's just turning it for his good. So,
and it's not like God picked a random street just because.
No.
You saying what you just said, people would, throw themselves off the bridge, but then this was the street or area where the KKK's headquarter was or is or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like God doesn't pick it just because I like that street and it's a pretty street. There's
Right.
I like that you said the background of that because that makes sense, you know,
Right.
as to why it's just not things are not done by random by God. Let's just put
My
it that
son.
way. Your son, I know my son. Hey, how are ya? Hi.
Okay. Yeah.
You're done now. All right, so let's have a wonderful conversation. Let's end the interview real quick. Advice you would give women, like you've been through a lot, so maybe, you know, a few things. Advice you would give women that are going through the same thing you went through.
My advice is to find your identity in Christ. As a woman specifically, because like I said, I went through low self-esteem, not because I wanted to, I just valued people more, people's opinion more than God's opinion. So I would definitely focus on your identity in Christ so that you are able to face people that may want to kind of put your fire out or may want to like take your light away. Because they'll be intentional about it. They will really try you and test you, and it's not because that's just like who they are. It's the enemy is working through them. So he'll put people in these traps, and you just have to learn how to build your identity in Christ, your character, your strength, everything, and go to him in a vulnerable way. Don't go to him like, I got this. What you got for me today? No. Like, God, I'm hurting.
Yeah.
God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what my future looks like. I just feel like I'm lost. These are certain things that you could say that he'll talk to you like that and say and get a hold of you. So I would, definitely find my identity in Christ. That's my answer.
I like that, and I like that you said the enemy will send people your way just to deter you. If you have not, I would suggest you read Job, right? I think I was.
Oh yeah. But I'm writing it down.
Yeah, the book of Job shows purposely how the devil was saying, "Well, I'm going to test this person, and you will see. You will see God." He's telling God, like, "You're going to see how quick this man is going to fall," and be like, I forget God, right? But if you read that, I would suggest everybody to read that, especially that you're saying, know your identity, no matter what is taken. Before I say that, just read it so you guys can see. But I just had like a couple a couple days ago. Not that I just had one, but it said, if you lose everything, as long as I have my peace, I'll be okay, right? Yeah. So definitely read Job because somebody said, Sarah said, I cried. I was a little mad. I was be honest. I was like,
it's a slippery slope because you could be like mad or you could be like sobbing.
Then I was mad at the friends for talking too much. But anyway,
it's all over the place, but it's a good story.
Yeah, definitely read it. Definitely. Number 2, what are some important things to do as a Christian woman?
I'll try to answer shortly. As a Christian woman, I would not copy people in their Christianity.
Yeah.
Don't look at what other people are doing and feel like it's for you, because again, your relationship with God is your relationship with God, and that's why he created us all different. So don't feel like you have to be even with this, like, don't feel like you have to take Grace's idea and get on with people just because you see so many people drawing to it. It's like God has everyone's own journey, path, things to do. So that's what I would tell Christian women specifically, because I see it a lot. A lot of followers, and they'll draw to what looks like gold, and it can turn out to be glitter. So
yeah, and I like that you said that because, if let's say we based off what would be the right way with you, like, oh, I need to be an artist like her. Well, some of us suck. Some of us suck at painting, right?
You don't want my life. I'm telling you now. You don't want to go through what I had to go through.
Right, and then like you were saying, like some people would say like, oh, I need to do lives to grow or to do this. Some people don't like to do lives. That's fine. Like, that's not your calling. That's not your purpose. I was an educator for 15 years. I stood in front of the classroom for 8 years. And I say this, not entertaining, but trying to grasp 40 to 15 students' attention for them to learn, right? I remember clearly God about 2 years ago said, the classroom was your practice. And I was like, I don't like
out now.
I don't like people. I don't like talking to, like, I don't have, but he's like, that was your practice. Like, that was,
wow.
Going on lives to me really is not nerve-wracking. It's not. Some people, but I say that to say, some people it's nervous. That's not your calling, right? Maybe.
I always tell people, like, if I'm teaching them about like entrepreneurship in general, do what you feel comfortable with first. Then your transformation might make you get out here and just not care. But if you care too much, this ain't for you.
Right, exactly. So definitely important to highlight, talk to God to see what your purpose is.
Right.
Yourself or hers and her. Well, she's doing that and she's painting and she's doing lives and she's over there worshiping every Sunday. Everybody's different. Even the Bible says there's a different like teaching. If you like to care about people and show them that you care, that's not me, so and it tells you whatever you're good at, do it.
Exactly.
Don't try to
do that. Don't try to be nobody else. And it took me till my late 20s to not be nobody else. And I'm 31 next month, which is not old.
I was saying, you're young.
But listen, I had to also transform with that mindset because of what I've been through. I'm thinking like I'm old, and then God was like, "You're young. Like, live your life. What are you doing?"
If you're old, I must be ancient or an elder. That's an income.
No, you're middle age or
right. That's what I was trying to get to. Middle age. Okay, let me tell you, I'll be 40 in November.
Don't look like it at all.
So I'm going to, what did she say, midlife?
Oh yeah, midlife crisis or
middle age.
I was like, oh, I'm approaching like a midlife crisis.
Oh,
wow.
so I must be an elder then. Am I?
Ancient Moses.
Yeah, I'm ancient. I was like, but so no, be you. All right, question number 3, just to end it off. What are some, if you know some, if not, just maybe one, what are some of your favorite Bible verses?
It's the Psalms 46:5 in your picture.
Oh, it's in here. Let me read it.
I can read the King James version. I think I have it up. Yeah, I do. It's God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. Mm-hmm. God shall help her, and that right early. Mm-hmm. So to me, I interpret that as in the midst of whatever I have going on, God is within me. I don't have to worry, fret, or doubt what is going on because he's within me. And that's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. But I do have it posted in my room because when I'm like walking around my house, like, God, where's my food going to come from? Like, whoa. He's like, I'm within you. So what are you worried about? So that's one of my favorite scriptures. I can go all day with several, but yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah. And I like that I like it. It's in my picture. Again, if you're just tuning in, definitely catch a replay, YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook, because now you really can't see it. But there we go.
Yeah, there you
go. That is hers. I loved it when she came out. I was like, it's mine, and I do have. I was like, it's mine. But definitely go back and watch the replay. Thank you so much for coming on here. I had
fun. I'll come out where you're at and visit when COVID's over.
Yeah. Well, I live in Vegas, so.
I know. I'd rather be out there than here. But.
Yeah. It's a little bit, it's not as restricted. Like
weather. Why?
Oh, weather right now, it's actually beautiful. It's about 80 degrees.
See, it's getting cold here. It's like 40 at night already. So.
We are happy because this is the second week that we're not in our 110 or 115.
Woo!
So we're enjoying our 80s. Yeah, we're enjoying the weather because by next month, October, it's when it starts getting cooler. In Vegas terms, it means 50 degrees.
Oh.
Which is perfect coming from the mountains.
Yeah, I would be in a tank top in that weather, like.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Perfect. I love the weather. The fall is beautiful. So thank you so much for tuning in and for hearing your story. I appreciate it because I know it takes time with our kids all the time. Trying to be in here, like, are you done yet?
I know. He's like, I'm hungry. Okay, so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.